Okay, and you may be seated, everyone. Slide over here just a little bit. Oops, they got to move the camera. Sorry about that, guys. Well, first, a big yasher koach to everyone who has done so much for the service today. Connie laning Besora trope. I mean, that's something else. That's really new and really special, beautiful, wasn't it? And also, Ralph for organizing the doing hybrid integration today when we're doing the YouTube stream, and this is much more challenging, easier in other ways, but more challenging in this way, and you put it all together. Thank you, Tracy, for making that work, and that was really cool to have you lead from across the country, so that's really cool. And music, everything. Today is a kind of a busy Shabbat. We say Chag Shabbat Rosh Chodesh Hanukkah Sameach. Okay, so it's not only Shabbat Hanukkah, it's also Rosh Chodesh, bringing us Hallel. We have 2 extra readings from Numbers and a unique Haftorah reading from Zechariah and Yochanan, John. So it is a marathon service. It's like that every year. I'll try to keep my message brief today as well so we can get to lunch. I've been overjoyed. Really, it's been really fun zooming in. Those of you who've zoomed into the candle lighting that we've been doing every night and from different people leading over Zoom. My favorite night was Thursday night because after we lit candles, we got to study Colossians together for home group. And it was cool that I just like studying Colossians, seeing everyone's menorah up and burning all together. That was really neat. And the flames on your screens. Well, for today, if I could invite you to close your eyes just for a moment and just visualize your Hanukkah, your Chanukah Menorah, and watch the warm glow as you transfer the flame of the shamas to the first candle. And ask yourself, what does the Hanukkah Menorah mean to you? What does the Hanukkah Menorah mean to you? Okay, you can open your eyes. My candles burn for, 30 minutes or so. Some nights I get distracted and move on to other things too quickly. One night we played dreidel with the family while we watched them burn at the table, and that was mostly laughs and joy moments. And last night we sat around the table with our Shabbat meal and got to watch the candles burn. I love to watch the flame as it transfers from one to another when we light, and then watch as the last moment of the flame goes from a flame into a glowing ember, vanishing into a trail of smoke. And I am left feeling nostalgic when that happens. It's really just a candle. It's a light in the dark for a short time, and then it's gone. Yet with all the distractions, there's still something eternal that I can just barely touch within the Hanukkah flame. This year, as I watched our candles burn, I reflected on my grandmother. Hanukkah was the one thing that my grandmother kept of her Jewish practice. So allow me to share just a bit of her story. She lived to be 101. Her cousins, my cousins called her Bubby. We called her Grandma. Grandma's father, Zelig Jacob, first saw his future wife, Esther Chaya, in Minsk, playing on the street when she was 12 years old. He said, "I am going to marry her," and he did. They were a traditional Jewish family, and they had a tough life in Russia. They were persecuted for being Jews. Her mother had to hide the children in the outhouse from the Cossacks. Grandma's mother had gone to work at a tobacco factory when she was 7. Her job was to test the cigarettes. Grandma's father was a brilliant craftsman and furniture maker, but he learned to drink when he was drafted into the Tsar's army. They would give soldiers vodka to stay warm. Her father managed to get to America in 1904 to begin making a living, and then he brought his family over a year later, and they came on a ship called Vaterland, in Yiddish, Fatherland, and landed in Ellis Island, New York. Grandma was born in 1914. She was the baby after 5 sisters and 1 brother. Her birth name was Malka, Queen. Our daughter Shoshana Malka is named after her. But as the story goes, the midwife didn't like the name, so she changed it to Mildred on her birth certificate. Grandma grew up in Brooklyn in the Jewish section, and her father attended the local shul. Her earliest memory of New York City in those days was her bubby, who was the family nanny. She also lived to be 101, taking her for the first time to the public baths because at 4 years old, she had gotten too big for the sink. Then her bubby died, leaving her on her deathbed with these words spoken in Yiddish: Malinka, be a good little girl, mind what your parents say, be religious, and don't stomp your little feet. Grandma's mother made challah every Friday. She baked babka and strudel. At age 62, she went to school for the first time and learned how to sign her name. Her dad struggled through life in Brooklyn. He would come home drinking schnapps at shul, and then he would pass out in his basement workshop drunk. My grandmother's siblings all went to Hebrew school, but when it came time for her, the youngest daughter, her father said, "Arois gevar van geld." I think I said that right, which means wasted money in Yiddish. So it didn't happen. She lived through World War I, the Great Depression, World War II, Vietnam. She went to Hunter College in New York City, joined the government union in D.C., married my grandfather, a hardworking union man, a non-Jew, raised Baptist, but unreligious. Her parents didn't approve, cut ties. My grandparents then moved to the suburbs in Maryland, and eventually they built a home on an apple orchard in what was then mostly farmland. Now, this house was a great house to visit as a kid. We would race up and down the long hallways and admire the large grandfather clock and many items of artwork that represented years and years of travel. We had a pool to swim in, tractors to ride, dogs to play with. I have 1,000 memories captured in smells and reflections and images from their home. Most of my memories circle around summer vacations, Thanksgiving feast, and Christmas. Brought in by my grandfather, secular Christmas giving and eating was a big deal. Jewish life was left to some snappy Yiddish phrases, stories of a world long past, and a passion for anything anti-Semitic. Against anything anti-Semitic, forgive me. A passion against anything anti-Semitic. Now, I'm telling this story because I have one small memory, an image in my mind that until recently, I never gave any thought to. My grandmother kept a small Chanukah Menorah on a wooden cart in the family room by a large open fireplace. And I can still see with clarity amidst the fire, amidst the Christmas gift wrappings and the leftovers of a feast and empty pie plates and wine glasses, a row of Hanukkah candles burning in the background. As a child, I never understood what they were for, but I can still see them in my mind clearly. And little did I know that one day I would gather with my family around the Hanukkah to light these same lights. Little did I know that they would become something that would light up my children's eyes with anticipation and with hope. Little did I know that this glow in the background of the family room would become something that I would cherish and something that I would pray for my children's children's children. Fires and gifts and feasts and wine and pie also hold a special place in my heart. But the light of the Hanukkah candles endures with something, how do I say, it's as if these mysterious candles in the background of my memory speaks to the meaning of the candles themselves. They held within their fading flames something that called out to me to take hold of and to nurture and to grow. Even lit without blessings, without Hanukkah explanations, without the meaning of the story retold, these candles held the glowing embers of an enduring covenant with God, of a people and a past almost lost. Hidden within the flicker of these flames is Hanukkah. Hanukkah is a complicated holiday. In one sense, we're remembering a bloody military war. The story goes, the evil Greeks invade and take over the temple. Judah Maccabee leads a resistance movement against all odds, defeats the strong Greek armies. The temple is desecrated and then rededicated with the lighting of the menorah. 1 day's supply of oil lasts 8 days. But of course, the real Hanukkah story told in the book of Maccabees is more complicated. Greek Hellenistic society is the crown of civilization. It was a melting pot seeking universalism and modern values, ideas, and institutions. The real Hanukkah battle wasn't only a battle between Jews and Greeks, it was an enduring battle against Jewish assimilation. Yet the Greeks put a statue of Zeus in the temple, but Hellenized Jews kept it there. The first man Mattathias Maccabee killed to start the rebellion was a Jew who slaughtered a pig on the altar. The Maccabees opposed Jews who wanted to seem less Jewish, even attempting to remove the marks of circumcision from their flesh. The Hellenized Jews wanted to mature beyond the old world Judaism of their fathers and be welcomed into the modern Greek world. 167 BCE. I would imagine that if we lived during that time, we'd feel divided. We'd feel torn between aggressive assimilation on the one hand and oppressive, zealous extremism on the other, the Maccabees. Perhaps this is a war that in some ways we're still fighting today. I wonder if we think we're divided today on today's issues, imagine what synagogues faced in 167 BCE. I think that it's meaningful that Jewish tradition decided to remember this complicated struggle by lighting the candles of the menorah. Instead of the darkness of war, we remember the light of God's presence in the sanctuary, a light that must endure within us from generation to generation, l'dor v'dor. Well, back to my grandmother for a moment. One story my grandmother would love to tell was when the members of the local Baptist church knocked on her door and she said, "Don't you know that Jesus was Jewish?" and shut the door. And then in later years, she would often reflect on this and say, why is it that Christians have hated the Jews? Jesus was a Jew. And after I became a follower of Yeshua and reclaimed my own Jewish identity as a Messianic Jew, she thought it was quite interesting that her grandson had become a rabbi, and I never quite knew what she thought of me also believing in Yeshua. As for me, Yeshua is my light of the world. Yeshua saved my life. Yeshua is my life. And after I came to know him, I wonder if he used my grandmother's words about the Jewish Jesus to speak to me. Yeshua took the fading flicker of the Hanukkah candles on the wood cart in the family room by the fire and brought them to life. In Jerusalem, during Yeshua's day, they would light a huge golden menorah that one could see for miles around. I wonder if Yeshua and his disciples had this in mind when he stood in Jerusalem in the temple and called out, "I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." We read today about how Yeshua walked in the temple courts during Hanukkah in his day. And the political leaders say, "Tell us, are you the Messiah?" And he answers, "My sheep hear my voice. I know them and they follow me. I give them eternal life. I and the Father are one." My grandmother was wiser than I knew. Yeshua certainly was a Jew. He is our Shamash Jew, and we must lift him high on our Hanukkah. In some mysterious way, the simple act that my grandmother did, lighting a flame on Hanukkah, passed Yeshua's light onto me. I saw that the Hanukkah menorah that God had given me to hold on to for my family might go out if I didn't pick up the candles. Now, of course, there are other parts of my family lineage that are important to me as well. But this is something more than a cultural heritage. The Jewish call is my life with God, a shared covenantal life passed from one generation to the next. There's a Jewish tradition that God preserves the flame of Abraham and Sarah within every Jew, no matter how far he or she may have strayed. And even though Hanukkah is a minor Jewish holiday, and in our family, no one really knew what the candles meant. Those Hanukkah candles silently carried the torch of our Jewish identity until I could hold the flame once more. Now, each of you has your own Hanukkah story, and it's now up to you to take hold of the candles and to pass on the torch to each other. And so allow me to come back to the first question. What does your Hanukkah menorah mean to you? This might be a good discussion question for Oneg this afternoon, or something that you might reflect on this evening as you gather around for the seventh night. Hold your candles close. Treasure each other. Treasure our Messianic Jewish community and the light of the menorah that endures within. Let your heart burn with Yeshua's light this Hanukkah and pass it on to the next generation. Chag Sameach, Shabbat Shalom.